All right, some breaking news here we got to hit. Greg Zuerlein has been placed on the COVID-19 list for the Cowboys. Now, the way this works, assuming Zuerlein is vaccinated, he has to have 2 negative tests 24 hours apart before Sunday, which could technically happen. I would be a bit surprised, though, if that does go down. I think it is very likely that Zuerlein is out this week against the Atlanta Falcons, meaning the Cowboys will be down their starting kicker and kickoff specialist, which makes things a bit tricky for the Cowboys organization. Now, Zuerlein this year has been okay. Not great, not special. Again, kickers outside of Justin Tucker really aren't that far apart. Now, there are several free agents the Cowboys could bring in and sign in the short term. I think the most notable one in terms of recent movement within Dallas' own team is Lirim Hajrullahu, the kicker who was out or was with the Cowboys when Zuerlein was a bit slow to get back from his own back issue in the preseason. So he knows the team knows him. He makes a lot of sense. Other notable names: Brett Maher, who is out there. Cobra Kai Forbath is still a free agent. And if you really want to go back, Dan Bailey is a free agent. But producer Jeff's going like this: he was washed. He was terrible last year in 2020. I'm not sure he's any good. Kicker workout coming on Wednesday for the Cowboys. So we'll see from that perspective what they end up doing. Today's Dallas Cowboys Report is presented by Manscaped. You can get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com when you use promo code Cowboys. It's not just me today on the Dallas Cowboys Report. We're joined by Jane Slater. Jane, thanks again for coming on. Appreciate it.
It's going to be a tough one to talk about, Tom.
That was a disaster.
It was rough.
I'll open up the floor to you here to give your thoughts on a I don't know if bad even begins to describe what that showing was against Denver.
Well, full disclosure, I was out of town for the birthday weekend, and thank God for NFL Game Pass, because I got to watch the condensed version the last 2 days, and it wasn't pretty. I got to imagine that it was as painful for the guys to watch this tape back. The fact that the Cowboys found themselves almost shut out at home until they scored in garbage time in the fourth quarter, I think is concerning, but perhaps the one thing that stood out for me the most was that they would put this expectation on Terence Steele in that offensive line to once again hand him another position. You've got La'el Collins, who's played left tackle before. Terence had done a great job over there at right. Why convolute the situation? I'm going to be very curious, Tom, to see if they continue to stay with this, because I think with the 10 pressures, the 2 sacks, and Dak under duress the entire game, it didn't feel like it worked for me.
Denver didn't really bring pressure that often in that game, and they still found ways to get home against Prescott. And like almost every quarterback, I think it actually is every quarterback, not as good when there's pressure in his face, especially when they're bringing 4. That was not a great game out of Dak. He said afterwards it wasn't the calf. I'm inclined to agree with him because he moved around a lot. He was running for his life, but it just felt like everything that could have gone wrong, offense, defense, special teams as well, which I'll get back to in a minute. Everything went wrong for Dallas.
It's just such a reminder of the importance of Tyron Smith at left tackle. I mean, think about some of the games that we've seen. I mean, actually, it reminds me of that Falcons game. Remember a couple of years back?
That game is ingrained in my
That was
memory.
a rough one for the Cowboys, but they were able to hold the line with the absence of Zach Martin in week 1, but they have struggled when you don't have Tyron Smith in the lineup. This is the guy protecting your quarterback's blind side, and a quarterback who's dealt with a shoulder situation and an ankle situation. And I tend to agree that I don't think his ankle was holding him back. When I hear people talk about knocking the rust off, I just go back to the fact we didn't see him in training camp or the preseason, and he had one of his best games against the Tampa Bay Bucks. I don't think this was rust. I think this was he could only do so much with so much pressure coming at him.
Yeah, it was everything that went wrong did go wrong. Were they believing their own hype too much? Felt like they just came out slow and flat for really, I think, the first time all year.
Yeah, it's hard to say because you look at what they did on the road in Minnesota with a backup quarterback, everything that could go right did for this team. And then you've got this one against the Broncos. I think we all underestimated them, and perhaps I think it was the, the Broncos talk about some of the disrespect, particularly going for it, on fourth down twice early in that first quarter, and they addressed that in the huddle. And I think they felt disrespected that a lot of us thought this was going to be a rollover game with Teddy Bridgewater under center and no Von Miller. And defensively and offensively, I think it was shocking off for all of us that not only cover this game, but the Cowboys themselves.
Well, they're still 6-2. They're still in the heavy lead in the NFC East, but I might regret this question. I want to hear from you guys anyway. What is your panic level right now over the Cowboys? 1-100. 1 meaning you're not concerned at all. In fact, they actually won the game for somehow. We're all lying to you. 100 being you are in full-fledged meltdown mode. Season is over. This is the pinned comment on today's video. So if you get the ad break here on YouTube, scroll on down and let us know. I said us that time. Got it right.
There you go.
All right, Michael Gallup then. Seems like he's finally going to come back at long last.
I think he's on pace to come back this week. I haven't gotten anybody to confirm that. It sounds like when I reached out about a bunch of these players, it's sort of a TBD this week. Maybe that's a competitive advantage thing, but it's also Tuesday. We don't ever really get to see meaningful work for these guys or really start to get a sense of where they're at health-wise until Wednesdays, of course, when I'll be there at practice. But it does sound like Michael Gallup might be good to go this week, and that might be a good thing considering what we saw from Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb and then Cedric Wilson, who we were talking so highly of. And by the way, I'm not knocking him because of one game, but I do think Gallup gives you something extra. I mean, I love the toe drag swag from him, and he's had plenty of time to get his body back in shape. And if I know anything about Gallup, he'll be eager to go here. And he's one of Dak Prescott's favorite targets.
And I think in particular, they've missed him in that vertical area. Cooper and Lamb have been able to win almost everywhere. Wilson, I think, tends to win a bit more after the catch. But Gallup brings that, especially lined up on the right side. Downfield, that's been a bit of the issues there. That was the comeback route. I think it was to Noah Brown or Lamb they couldn't connect on one of those plays. I think that's where you kind of miss Gallup the most. Here's my question for you, though. Is it going to be a heavier receiver rotation than what we saw last year or the year before that, for example, because Cedric Wilson has played so well?
Well, I think you're going to see a heavier rotation because I think Zeke's going to have a hard time getting through this offensive line in the absence of Tyron Smith. And, we certainly saw that. They were just early on stuffing Zeke in that game. I tend to think that, and I could be wrong about this, but I tend to think that game was an outlier, and it was also a good game to have this point in the season, right? We kept talking about you can't. I even had guys on our network who said the S word last week, and I said, just calm down. But I think that these guys feed off the motivation. If anyone does, it's certainly Dak Prescott. I have a hard time underestimating this team based on what I saw the first half of the season against the Bucs, against the Chargers, against the Vikings without your starting quarterback. So for me, there's been a lot of signature games that tell me that this team is talented. I just think they laid an egg. And by the way, a lot of teams laid an egg last weekend. And the weekend before that, look at the Bucs. I covered that game when it was the Tampa Bay Bucs getting beat in the Dome against the Saints with a backup quarterback. They lost their starter, Jameis Winston, early on in the game. So perhaps that's a good thing, right? But yeah, I tend to think that this game was a bit of an outlier. I expect them to bounce back. But I also look at a Falcons team that we were perhaps underestimating at 4-4 and saw what they did in the Dome against the Saints with that final field goal in the fourth quarter.
My mindset is you can't let one game override the previous 7. Now, I have a question for you guys. Who plays more this week? We've seen the Cowboys kind of limit to an extent the guy's first game back from injury. I'm thinking back to Donovan Wilson, for example. So who plays more? MG for Michael Gallup, CW for Cedric Wilson. While you're in the comments getting your predictions in there, you can also check out the link we'll throw in there for Manscaped. 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com when you use promo code Cowboys. If you're like me, you suck at asking for gifts for the holiday season because I just don't need really all that much. But this is a great gift. If you have one, maybe time to upgrade. If you don't have Manscaped, well, now's the time to get going. The Lawnmower 4.0 is the #1 men's grooming tool out there. 20% off and free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and you use promo code Cowboys. Producer Sam's very proud of this little gift that we've set up as well. So check the comment section. You can check the description as well. I'll throw that link in there. It's manscaped.com, promo code Cowboys. Let's go now, Jane, to that left tackle situation. First update on Tyron Smith is it sounds like he's going to be a little bit longer from what you said pre-show.
Yeah, I reached out to someone, and it sounds like we're going to probably look to have him not in this one. Maybe it looks like we'll see him back against the Kansas City Chiefs. And then I also inquired, can we still expect Terence Steele over there at left? And it sounds like they might stay there. Now, what I've appreciated about this team, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, Dan Quinn said when it doesn't work, we go back to the drawing board. They're not afraid to move away from it. A lot of people, I think, initially thought that Terence Steele would struggle there on the right, and he's done a really good job this season. I just think you're asking this guy to do a lot. It's only his second year. He's done a nice job over there, but it is footwork and it's vision. That's what Mike McCarthy told us last week, and I would think you'd go to your veteran to more aptly pick up on something that he's got to change early in the week. But, I mean, we'll see. Again, we'll look at Wednesday. They've done a pretty good job with the limited time that media has to view practice of sort of withholding that from us. And I would also argue when we asked about this early in the week, McCarthy wasn't giving it away. So it was a little bit of a competitive advantage for them, so to speak. But, yeah, I don't know. That was rough.
Yeah, and what concerned me the most is that Steele was getting beat to the edge. It wasn't like he was getting beat inside and the guard wasn't able to help. He was just getting blown by a seventh-round rookie in Jonathan, who I liked a lot coming out of OSU, but that's a seventh-round rookie. You should handle that one. You kind of mentioned it pre-show, and I wanted to hold off it. You were not happy that Steele was the guy out there at left tackle at all. If you want to continue to go on a little
I just literally thought. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And again, I just feel like a veteran who's played that position in college, who has a sense of the vision and the footwork on that side of the ball, on a short week, why are you making the change over to Terence Steele? I would have kept Terence at right, but I don't get paid for that. That's above my pay grade. Philbin, if he catches this, is going to say, this is not her space. Stay in your lane. Fine. And maybe Terence Steele will impress us. I mean, I think he certainly has stepped up this year in ways no one expected. So maybe it's going to take a game like this to get them to turn it around. But I don't hate the loss. It was against an AFC team. It happens at sort of the midpoint in the season. And I think this puts a bit of a fire in their belly. You're also beginning to get some players back. This means you've experienced some depth. You just hate to see it at home, a place that we probably shouldn't have seen that. But I was joking with some friends ahead of this. I said they're the type of team that would have gone on the road, beat the Vikings, and lost to the Broncos at home, and they sure did it. It's a Cowboys way, guys.
All right, well, you've heard from Jane on the left tackle situation. My mindset had been, they've earned the trust of us to trust they make the right call at left tackle, and they didn't really. So after seeing a rough showing against Denver, pick a left tackle for me. TN if you want to go with the backup to the backup, I guess, Ty Nsekhe. LC for Lyle Collins, or TS for Terence Steele. Let's go back to some injury notes, knowing that they're kind of keeping it hush-hush right now. Is Trysten Hill going to come back this week?
Great question. It sounds like there's a possibility of that. I just don't know what to expect from Trysten Hill. I thought he had a nice year when I talked to people about him last season. He was one of the guys who actually stepped up with the new regime and was playing well. He had a really good offseason prior to last year. I just don't know what to expect from him because he's been so up and down since they took him in the first round. Like I said, Rod Marinelli was a big fan of him. They sat in the lobby ahead of the draft. I believe it was his birthday. Good kid, but he really struggled, I was told, in that particular room. The vets were not hazing him, so to speak, but they can be tough
picking on the
young guys, and he struggled with that a little bit. So I think he's going to need a little bit of mental fortitude, and we'll see how they utilize him, but it's hard to say what we can expect from Hill at this point.
And he was young coming out of the draft, too,
he was.
So maybe that's a bit understandable. I look at the defensive line, and I really like what I've seen from Osa this year, especially as a pass rusher. I don't love what else I've seen from the interior pressure. It feels like when the Cowboys win in that area, it's Gregory or Parsons as kind of that stand-up guy lined up over center or guard. And then the run defense, especially against Denver. looked a lot like the 2020 run defense, and that's a concern for me.
And you can't have that, right? And especially we were talking about how well Jaron Kearse was doing the week before, getting guys lined up. It allowed Micah to play a little bit more freely. And then the wheels kind of came off the bus. But I do love the resolve from Dan Quinn. He was talked so much about, this team that he's with the Falcons, 5 seasons, facing his former team. There's so many that are facing, Aiden Dirty was on that staff, a bunch of players. But I loved Dan Quinn saying that he was going to be up there at the Star in Frisco, focusing on that. And I don't know if I can say this on YouTube, but he said that they've got some shit to fix. Okay. And I think all of us would look at that and say, yes, you do have some shit to fix. So I appreciate the honesty, and I appreciate being able to use one of my favorite words here on YouTube, a little different than NFL Network. But yeah, I think based on what we've seen from Dan Quinn, he's not afraid to reinvent the wheel. And he's just, for me, earned enough trust that I think he's going to turn this thing around this week.
Well, speaking of trust, the next question for you guys watching and girls watching. Do you trust the run defense? Y for yes, N for no. Head down to the comments, type your responses for me. And while you're down there, just make sure you guys are subscribed. Still got free daily Dallas Cowboys videos here on the Cowboys Report. Sometimes multiple times a day. I think for the season, we're averaging somewhere like 8 or almost 8.5 per week. So you guys are getting more than just one a day. Free videos here. Subscribe if you haven't already from myself and Jane, and from Jane Slater, Bobby Belt, the Boys and Girls Show as well. 2 more players I want to hit probably more briefly here, Jane, in terms of the injury situation. DeMarcus Lawrence, how close are we to getting him back? Because I miss him right now.
Yeah, I don't anticipate seeing him this week. Maybe we're starting again. We'll talk about Kansas City perhaps. But again, I've reached out to a bunch of people this morning asking about some of them, and they are playing their cards pretty close to their vest. Again, it's early in the week, so maybe we get some more news as the week progresses.
Can we get Thanksgiving going?
I think it's a better possibility. Okay. Honestly, that's probably what I would do. I'd sit around, give him 2 more games to start getting himself together. But yeah, I don't anticipate seeing him this weekend against the Falcons.
How about the guy who was supposed to be defensive tackle 1, Neville Gallimore? I know McCarthy mentioned it's the elbow that makes it tough for an interior lineman, but it's been a little bit longer than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, another one that I think we're going to sort of have to wait towards the end of the week, but they could certainly use some help right now. But if we're looking for a silver lining, because I know it's tough to find one after such a stormy weekend, it is the fact that you are getting a lot of really quality players that are going to be coming back here in the next couple of weeks. I'd like to think that they're going to use this game as fuel and be able to turn this one around against the Falcons. But it's been really hard to call these games lately based on the way some of these teams are performing. I don't know what to make of some of these teams right now, honestly. Do you?
No, I think this has been a true parity year for the NFL. I was looking at the standings. I think you've got 5 really good NFC teams that I think are legit contenders in the top 5 right now. I was looking at the AFC side as well. Oh, thank you, Sam. Great job. The NFC, Cardinals, Packers, Bucks, Cowboys, Rams, I believe in. I still have no idea what to make of the Saints. We play them in a few weeks as well. Who knows? AFC side, there's I think it was 11 teams that are above 500. It's really been a heavy parity year for the NFL, which get to the playoffs and see what happens in the end, I guess.
Well, and again, if you get yourself to the playoffs, which the Cowboys have got such a comfortable lead right now in the NFC East, they are getting so many players back that are going to be healthy. But I am going to be very interested to see the injury report this week as it pops out. Did they have any other injuries that came out of that game? Because they certainly got bullied in this one. And there's always something that seems to pop up, right? We got a little elbow situation here, a hip situation there. So we'll just see how these guys shake out. But, I think it all starts with Dak. I truly believe that Dak doesn't have any limitations with that ankle. They've got to shore up that offensive line, and we have certainly seen that line create problems for them in the past. And of any year to be protective of your quarterback and give him the best sense of a brick wall up there, it's this year with Dak, given some of the injuries that he's had popped up.
All right, well, Jane, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. You'll see Jane again in the near future, folks. I promise you.